Hello, my name is Paul Sperlin. Welcome to the Paul Sperlin Show, Beyond the Mic. This is a podcast all about, just about anything and everything in ministry. All kinds of ministry, from church to family, marriage, raising kids, walking the walk, and much, much more. We will share the latest news, sports, current events, and what's trending and what's not. This is a show to share what all's going on in the Brotherhood, from lectureships, camps, conferences, and all other events. We're all about the search for life, love, and the pursuit of happiness. We seek to find truth, justice, and the way to Him. To keep up with what's going on with the Paul Sperlin Show, please follow us on social media, all platforms, at The Paul Sperlin, and on the website, thepaulsperlin.com. Send us an email at thepaulsperlin@gmail.com. We hope you enjoy this episode, and now, let's start the show. Welcome to the Paul Sperlin Show, brought to you by Piedmont Road Church of Christ, right there here in Marietta, Georgia, and also Ministry League at ministryleague.com. Our website for Piedmont is lifeinchrist.com. If you have a comment during the show, I'm looking at it, I'm watching it, send me an email at thepaulsperlin@gmail.com. And we'll love to interact with you during this show. Also, don't forget about the website, thepaulsperlin.com. Check out all the things we got going on there. Most things there you'll probably find on most of those other websites as well. So a lot of places to go, a lot of things to do, and we got a lot of stuff to do. We missed a week. I was not with you last week because of travel time, but that is part of what this show is about. And we've got a special guest. I'm really excited about that. Our topic today is Scott, and we'll explain all that to you in just a few minutes. So looking forward to all of that. So it's been a long week. I've been traveling. The different things occurred, and to be honest with you, really, this is kind of what I would consider, I guess, the news. So if we're going to do that, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Hope your Sunday was great. Ours was great here today. It was great to be back with the good folks here at Piedmont Road. Glad we could worship here. Great day. Of course, if you're involved in Latin's leaders like we are, your afternoons are filled full of cool stuff as far as that goes. And then of course, next week we have what we call the mini convention, which is a little walkthrough of what the convention will be like right here at the church building. All the folks here at church will take part in that. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good. But I do hope that you're well in your life. Things are going well. You may have seen some posts on social media as we spend some time with some folks, and but that is part of the news. So let's get to that right now. So we do have some stuff as far as some locations we went to, some things that we did, some people we met, and some food that we ate. We do that on trips like that. So that happened. We're excited about that. Also, keep in mind that a lot of things are coming forward. Okay, we have the Lads Leaders Convention itself is the third weekend of April. And right after that is Ministry League Experience. And I'm going to wait. There's another piece of that I want to talk about. I'm going to wait till our guest is on because he's a member here and a good friend. And so we'll talk about more of that in just a few minutes. So don't let me forget about that one. But yes, we went to Heritage Christian for Alumni Days, which is there middle of March. But what was interesting is because of the rebuild of what was Lloyd Auditorium on campus in Henderson, Tennessee, at Freed-Hardeman University, formerly Lloyd Auditorium, now Dryden Auditorium, which is, by the way, beautiful, immaculate. I cannot wait I know those of you that are going to Rush at Freed-Hardeman, you'll love it. Horizons this summer at Freed-Hardeman, but also Rush that we'll be doing the end of September. We're looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome. But Dryden Auditorium is awesome. It's beautiful. It really is good, and they're not done with it yet. They got a lot of more things they're going to be doing to continue the upgrade there on campus at Freed-Hardeman. We also saw the Chick-fil-A, and I know everyone expects it to be better chicken than anywhere else, and it is on campus at Freed-Hardeman University. So we'll say yes, it's better than anywhere else. So go check it out. But because of the schedule, the lectureship fell the week after Alumni Days at Heritage Christian University. So it kind of worked out to do both. Usually doesn't happen. The free lectures are usually the first full week of February. And so it just worked out. And so while we were there, in between one to the other, nice little tornado come through Russellville and touched down through the state of Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Georgia, and other areas. So and there were some situations that occurred, some injuries and so forth. So prayers for all those folks, all those things going on. And if you are in a place where there was destruction and there was hurt and things, and no one's contacted you, no one's helped you or offered, shoot me an email. Let's find a way to help you if we can. That's what we're here to do. So lectureships were great. Enjoyed it. I was honored to be able to speak on Monday afternoon on an interesting topic, and I'm going to share that at the end of the show because it'll be sort of our devotional time. I'm going to share with you on that. But that was a really neat opportunity. Had a good crowd. Had as I mentioned as I started to speak, I had family members in the room. I had good friends in the room. I had heroes, some of my heroes in the room, and so a lot of good folks. But what was interesting wasn't just me being able to speak there. What was good for me was the conversations that I've had since then. And it was dealing with or ministering to families with special needs children. And so I had done that at Piedmont Road here not quite a year ago. Well, I guess it was about almost a year ago, last summer. And it drew some traction on the topic, and so we were able to do that. But that was neat, and like I said, we'll talk about that toward the end of the show. But right now, I would like to bring in one of the co-hosts of the Les and Paul show. Since you're looking at Paul, you know that it's the other one, and so it's the brains behind the machine. Okay, that's what it is. The guy that pushes the button that hits record and makes things happen. And we got a lot of different things that we're involved in. And so we're excited about it as he shakes his head. Les Sandifer, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I am doing good. How are you doing?
Awesome. Doing great.
But you're just getting it started, right?
It's time to get started. Let's get going. So I will tell you, and you can relate to this because you live here, traffic in Atlanta is usually bad. Traffic this morning was extraordinarily bad. It was a parking lot like I've never seen before. So you learn things new every day.
Well, and the direction you're coming from is challenging in the morning. There's no doubt about it.
That is absolutely true and fair. And my choice, my problem. But we got here and we're ready to go and excited about that. So thank you for being here. Anybody who knows and follows Ministry League knows the Les and Paul show. We've done 2 shows on the network of Ministry League, and so I just wanted to bring, and I've talked about on the show before, but I wanted to bring you in and sort of talk about where the name for both of the shows we've done comes from. One is obvious because it's the Bible. The other one is a way to live. And I thought it was kind of neat to kind of talk about that and to encourage people, but also throw out a challenge for their daily life and what they do. Mm-hmm. But I also want to communicate to folks that maybe they're sitting at home and thinking, maybe this is something I like to do. Let's kind of give them how this all started, what happened with podcasting at Piedmont Road and the Les and Paul show.
Well, I'm probably not the best person to recount history because I don't remember things very well, but I do. It's funny. I do remember that you and I had a lot of conversation around this subject matter of doing a podcast and really getting involved together. I mean, it stems from teaching in some ways. And really that's kind of what ties us together really is that desire to teach. But I guess the podcast was really kind of one of those things for us that we jihad so well together, if that's a good word I can use, in a podcast. I mean, in a video setting like this, but yeah, we do so well together, kind of pinging off each other. It seemed like a natural thing to go into the idea of podcasting, and the 30 minutes for God, really is the concept of having each of us kind of recognize that each day we need to take time out of our lives to spend some time with God in prayer, in Bible study, in contemplating other people that we need to get close to, and really, 30 minutes is very little time in the grand scheme of our day, but it's a
Mhm.
start, and it's a place for all of us to focus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. We had that conversation about all the other podcasts that have been going on. I've done a few in the past. We've been podcasting, I think, about 10 years or so. And
Okay.
you leave places, you move places, you relocate places, and situations in life happen. And so I kind of hit a little drought there. I'm like, what am I going to do? And then as we started teaching the teenage class together, it was seamless. And we're like, we should hit record. I mean, we should say this stuff. This is good stuff. Of course,
Yeah.
give away to God. The Bible gives us some pretty neat material there, so we'll never run out. That kind of thing. But that
Yeah.
is a good start.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, with the material at hand, which is God's word, I mean, there's really never an end to what you can talk about. And that particular podcast for us is it's really a two-piece thing. I mean, really, it's partly about giving people Bible in that 30-minute episode where they can
Mm-hmm.
listen to it on their drive into work or wherever they're going. But it's
Right.
also relatability. I mean, to me, it's both pieces, because what they see is two men who love God talking about the subject matter of the Bible in
Uh-huh.
a very informal way.
Mm-hmm.
It's unscripted, other than the fact that we generally have some idea of what scripture we're going to use as the basis. We
Sure.
don't pre-script how we're going to discuss it, what's going to come out of it, and that's life. I mean, that's real life for all the folks that are sitting out there.
And that's really its purpose is that we don't write down word for word what we're going to say. Nobody wants to watch that show.
Right.
And we've had a podcast in the network before. It's literally called The Unscripted Show. And it was followed well because they knew they're going to use the Bible. But it's like, what in the world are they going to say next? Or what song are they going to sing
Hmm.
next? What are they going to do? And that's kind of what we've turned into. But I love your point there about, we're able to show our personalities to two guys that just love Jesus, love God, and love talking about him. And
Right.
that makes it easy. And I'm really excited about the next season as we've been making plans for that. I know folks have been asking. I don't know if you've gotten them, but I have. You know,
Okay.
we noticed that the 30 Minutes for God, kind of hit the end of the season. What's happening? And I'm like, oh, it's coming. It's going to be back. It's going to be larger than life. And so,
That's right.
but we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But let's talk a little bit about the concept behind the 30 Minutes for God, because you mentioned that actually, I think in the class for the teenagers, and it's basically, can y'all not just give us 30 minutes? Just give us 30 minutes. Remember, when
Right.
you huh, interesting, because everybody can do that. But there's something about being at the table with Jesus too. Talk about that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah. So when we start the show, we really always talk about getting your cup of coffee and sitting down in a format in which you kind of in your mind say, I'm going to talk to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we obviously are not the apostles or the disciples of the first century, so we're not seeing him face to face and having a conversation with him face to face, but we are doing the next best thing. We are communicating with him through
Mm-hmm.
the word that has been given to us, which is Jesus. The Holy Spirit, helps us in that process of understanding what's been given to us. But we access all three personalities of God in
Mm-hmm.
that setting. And our concept is really, and this kind of, I guess this is kind of a teaser for next season, but um, our concept really is we're sitting down as if we had the opportunity to talk to Jesus himself.
Mm-hmm.
And we're letting Jesus talk to us through the word. And I will, kind of side comment here. Your avenue back is your prayer life to the
Mm-hmm.
Father through Jesus, with the Holy Spirit helping when you struggle with things. But I mean, in the end, that's really our two-way communication, right? So the
Yeah.
concept for me and Paul was we're going to sit down with the Bible open and let Jesus talk to us.
Yeah, because Today's society, coffee is taking over the nation. You're probably doing it right now. Not just less, but as you're sitting, you're watching, you're at the office. It's still AM in most places, and so
Yeah, right.
you're probably drinking it. And the thing was, if you sit down, you go to Starbucks or Black Rifle or wherever you want to go, because it's back open, by the way, it's really good coffee. Is that you like, let's sit down and coffee, let's talk about it. And so I've had a lot of meetings at different coffee shops. A lot. We got deacons, members that are like, want to meet. In fact, David Reese and I talked just yesterday. He said, "Now, what's that coffee place called? We got to talk about our class or whatever. What we're doing, things going on." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." So it's always about that. And so what we get to do on the weekly is sit down at that table with a really cool tabletop that Les provided, really cool chairs that Les provided. And so I mean, he's building up our studio, folks. It's also, if it looks good, it's that guy. Okay, so that's happening. But
we'll get it on video.
You will see it on video. I guess that's the teaser that lets them know is you've been listening to us for the past year. I guess it's been a year. If we have 50-something episodes and 2 shows, and we are going to get to the other show in a minute, but now you get to see our faces. So what you're seeing now is basically what you will see there in similarity, which is interesting because we didn't plan this. We're wearing our sponsors right now. So Piedmont Road and Ministry League. So that's pretty cool. There we go.
Yep.
So really neat stuff. So we've done the 30 minutes for God. And what's interesting about that is, we can start from anywhere, we can end anywhere, as long as we're talking about not an issue, challenge situations with Jesus. And next season, it's pretty exciting. And send it to that email if you don't mind. If you're watching or listening, if you have a question you would want to ask Jesus, send that to either paul@lifeinchrist.com or the Paul Sperling Show at gmail.com, and send us all your questions on Facebook, Messenger, Les, myself. Send it to us and let us hear from you, and we're going to answer those questions. I mean, I can't imagine there is a question, and I'm going to challenge you, not Les, but listeners. I'm going to challenge you. Send us a question you think we won't answer.
Yeah.
I mean, because if it's in the Bible, we got what we need.
Yeah, so that's true. And I mean, some things you hit on as a question that become, a little bit of an opinion thing based on what we think the Bible's telling us. But most of what we're going to probably touch on are going to be things that are Bible. So we just go look at the scriptures and see what the scriptures say and talk a little bit about it. I mean, we had one of those. I mean, truthfully, we could take this over to the other show when we start recording the new season. It came up in class Sunday about when Moses was directed by God to go out and do his thing in front of Pharaoh, and specifically about the snake. Throw the stick on the ground, it becomes a snake. The other guys did the same thing. They had the ability to do the same thing. The question was, is that God causing that to happen? Or is that they had some ability to magically produce a snake? So, I mean, these are the kinds of questions you look at. You read the Bible, you go look at the scriptures, you read about it, and you kind of think about it. That's the fun of the show.
Wow. Actually, now I want to talk about it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure God had a lot to do with all that. But just to prove, I don't know. I mean, sometimes let's not forget. I mean, God is the Almighty. Can you imagine the personality that He actually has in dealing with these situations? To give these guys, these followers of Pharaoh, an opportunity to do the very same thing that Moses did, just to challenge them to see what's next.
Right.
I think it's interesting to show the power of God. So anyway, that's that. But
well, and then in the context of that particular scripture, it is interesting just to read how we're given the information, because it talks about the sorcerers of Pharaoh, and they produced the snake, and I don't remember the exact phrase, but their arts, something to that effect, which might make you think they were, pulling some tomfoolery, if you will.
Sure.
I read something about they could do something with snakes, inject something into snakes that made them look like they were,
Oh,
for the purposes of this fakery, they could inject snakes with something that basically froze them for a period of time. What comes to mind for me is the goats that faint. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's a
yeah,
medical condition with the goats. So it's not really, to me, it's not as funny knowing it's a medical condition that when you scare them,
yeah.
all of a sudden go stiff. But there was something I read about those snakes that said there was some ability to do that. But I personally
Seems like
kind of think what you think, Paul, which
good.
is
Well,
God
I feel like
allowed them to have that concept, that ability, so that he could overpower it.
that cow tipping is also a part of the conversation of the
Yeah.
goats. For some reason, I
Well,
feel like it's family, and pew. And
did
if
you
you've
ever
never
cow
gone,
tip?
I'll give you instructions to send you where to go.
Cow
um,
tipping.
you know, but maybe they did inject. Here we are on this conversation. Inject something in these snakes, and what it probably did, it didn't help their cause any, because Moses' staff was pretty hungry and
Oh
decided
yeah,
to devour them and show the power of God. And that's why I think maybe God did this. It's, yeah, sure, you have this.
yeah.
You have your 5 minutes of fame, and I'm gonna show you who's boss. It's just kind of cool how the Bible works that way, and how
It
God.
is, and that was kind of Jake's point in the lesson that he made. The point that he
Mm,
made was it doesn't really matter about the others. God was in control.
that's
So
right.
whether God empowered them to all of a sudden, because I mean, you just imagine the scene. If it's Pharaoh's fakeries and
Yep.
they're standing there, and all of a sudden they throw a snake on the ground, I mean, a stick on the ground, and it becomes a snake, and they've never been able to do that before.
Yep.
I mean, I can imagine the look on their face if God just all of a sudden allowed them to have that power and it happened,
Yep.
and then he overruled it anyway. Or, they were pulling some, shenanigans of whatever, measure they do, and then God overpowered them anyway. So
Yeah.
the point is God overpowered them.
It's like, just kidding. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
I love
Sorry,
it.
sorry, you don't win.
Yeah, no, you don't win. And by the way, in case as you're watching this is it. This is actually what the show is. We talk about the Bible and we share
Yeah.
things, and pretty cool. And it's really cool. Let's talk a little about the other show we've done. It has found its finality. We had 30 episodes. There's a reason why it ended, because the
Yeah.
book is only 22 chapters long. But but talk about that, where they can find it, and what they can learn from it.
Yeah. So in terms of where you can find it, you can find it's the Revelation series. Um, of lessons, and you can find it anywhere you find your podcast. So Spotify, YouTube, probably the easiest place to find it is ministryleague.com.
Mhm.
That's really the jumping off point. I mean, if you go to the Ministry League app, you can do it at networks, but you get in there and you get the list of podcasts. But that's probably, I mean, really realistically, that's probably the easiest way to find it. For
Sure.
those that are watching this show right now, I'm not controlling this camera movement. So when you see it zooming in and out on me, the technology we're using is kind enough to do that for us. So I didn't
Yeah.
want you to be. Paul sits more still than I do. I use my hands a lot, and I guess it tricks the camera into thinking I'm doing stuff. I don't know exactly why, but back to Revelation. So you can find it wherever you find your podcast stuff, but I would really encourage you to go to Ministry League because of the resources there. The show was the genesis of the show was Paul and I both had a desire to really kind of capture something for posterity's sake, if you will, something that
Mhm.
people could go back to and look at again or revisit about the subject matter of Revelation. It is one of those books that really a lot of people shy away from simply because they don't understand it, and it in our view is not that hard to understand. And our
Mhm.
goal really in doing this was to put together something where we could it was just a permanent resource to go back and kind of revisit the subject matter of the book of Revelation. And that's really where it started, because both of us wanted to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So we did.
Yeah. Well, and we were finishing a class with the teenagers, and we kept
Right.
telling them, "Revelation's coming, Revelation's coming, Revelation's coming." and win. And like, you know what? Let's just do it next quarter. It turned out to be 2 quarters because we wanted to break down the churches. So that's 7 weeks. At least we had a week each and a show each. And then we had a beginning, we had an ending, and then everything in between. And it's a really, I've always wanted it documented somewhere where someone can go and listen and understand the symbology of it, the purpose of it. And most of it is the eyes of John. It's like we're not fabricating the situation. We're showing what he saw, so don't think it's literal.
Well, and that's to try to demystify some of what people, hear and what the world says about it. For the podcast, it was a chapter at a time. We weren't able to do, once we got past the churches, I should say. The churches were their own special discussion. But once we got into chapter 4 and following, it was really a chapter per podcast. And that was intentional because we wanted, if somebody went back, we wanted them to be able to go, okay, I want to go back and revisit the commentary on chapter 6 or whatever it is.
Right.
For the class that we did simultaneously here at Piedmont Road, it didn't really work out that way necessarily. It just couldn't. But the great thing about the podcast is that it saves it forever in that format till we do it again, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, it's also on YouTube. So if you go to lifeofchrist.com, you find the YouTube channel for the church.
That's right.
We did record that. I think for me, I loved recording the podcast the afternoon or the day that we were about to teach about it that night. That really was not just a refresher, but to at least see what both sides went to on the topic of the night. And so, and you're right, having it documented in there where we go back and find it was really neat. And yeah, you're right. The next time, I mean, it only gets sweeter. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, that's a really good point too, that there's a video version, slightly different, but a video version at YouTube.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
And you do get a couple of different views there because you listen to the show, don't expect to hear word for word at night what you hear that morning. You kind of need both. They accompany each other pretty well if you think about it. So it's not a selling point. Not making money. We just want y'all to get it, and understand it better. So, anyway, well, let's talk about the next season because we've already said some things about it. We've done this or that. Let's just go ahead and let them know kind of what next season looks like. We've talked a little about what we're going to do, but let's recap that a little bit as we close out.
Yeah, so we've had a goal from day one to move into the video world. The podcast is like a traditional podcast. It's audio. But we wanted from day one to really kind of focus ourselves in and really expand what we do into video world. Yeah. So that is the next evolution. There's a little technical that goes with it. We are what's the best way to put this, Paul? We're a limited resource shop, I guess, if that's a good way to put it. So we don't have a producer sitting in there with us. Our schedules don't really lend itself to us having a dedicated time each week where we go in, somebody's in there with us, and we're accomplishing all this in a setting like you would a normal studio setting. So Paul and I are trying to do this really as efficiently as possible so we can get the podcast or the video podcast out there as quickly as possible. Yeah. And that's really the next evolution.
I think we're probably
software and camera setup.
Wouldn't you think? We're probably a week or two away from starting this thing. Yeah. We kind of, especially this show, and to be honest with you, this is kind of dry run because this is kind of it, and we'll do different things, different overlay and locations and everything. But we just want you to know this is kind of what the Les and Paul show may look like in the future, and it could be that very soon. And so bring those questions and let us know what's going on. So
that is definitely the goal, to get started on the next season as quickly as possible and get it out there.
That's right. Well, Les, any final things you want to share with our listening audience? Anything you want to share with us as we go on with the show?
No, I appreciate the time. I always love sitting and chatting with Paul. I mean, we have a good time doing it. we've said this before on the podcast itself, but the reality is we're probably a 3-to-1. The 1 being podcast recording, the 3 being all of the time we spend discussing other things or that subject matter in trying to get it recorded. So it's a lot of fun. So I was excited to be on here today. So we, as you said, we got the dry run of what it's going to feel like moving forward.
And you're right. The pre-show is priceless when you consider all the things we do in preparation to get ready for going live and stuff like that.
We should record the outtakes.
We should find a way to do that. We should get that third person to come in and actually do some work and help us a little bit. We got to find that person.
Yeah, we got to find that person. You're exactly right.
That's right. All right, man. Thanks for being with me. And
all right, man. Enjoy the rest of your show.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
All right. That was Les Sandifer, podcaster extraordinaire. Appreciate him for being with us today on this show, and be looking for that next few weeks. We'll continue to have some guests on the show. Next week, we're going to have on the schedule in the queue, we have Philip Randolph, who works for Faulkner University in the Bible department. He'll be here to talk about their master's program and a lot of exciting things happening on campus at Faulkner. A lot of new things, some changes, some new hires, and some other things going on there that I know they're excited about that we'll be talking about next week. I did forget to mention a couple of things. You know, at the end of the show, usually you're like, okay, what did I get wrong? What I did this. Let me mention this, and you probably can still order this. Promise and Providence. This is the lectureship book from Freed-Hardeman University. I meant to mention it when we talked about the lectureship earlier. It is not your average lectureship book. This is a 13-week Bible study about the book of Genesis. It's really awesome. And I love how they did it, the binding of it, and the putting together the people who wrote the chapters and going through all this. And maybe there'll be a time we can go through some of this. Basically, it's a Bible character study. And I'm starting, let's say you got Reuben, Jacob, Esau, Rachel, Leah, Isaac, Hagar, Adam and Eve, Abel, Noah, Abraham, Melchizedek, Sarah. These people spoke, like Brian McAllister spoke on Melchizedek, but they spoke on these things, and it's in the book. It's really good. Go to their website at fhu.edu, and I'm sure they'll make that available to you for that. And another thing I forgot to mention in the news about the NCAA tournament, it is rolling on, and the SEC top 4 is doing pretty well on that deal. So this is a Southeastern Conference show-ish. So there's that, and so they're doing well. Of course, last night Alabama did very well, and moving on to the Sweet 16. So all that will transpire this next weekend. So we're looking forward to all that. That's neat. So let's finish the show with a short devotional. And it's a devotional. I just want to recap a little bit about what I talked about on campus at Freed this past week. And I just want to share some things with you on that. I talked about ministering to families with special needs. I started this in James chapter 1 and verse 2, where James tells us to count it all joy when you face trials and tribulations of your life. In what world are you throwing a party when things are bad? But I think what God is telling us through inspiration here is he's basically telling us that he believes that we will overcome. He believes that we will overcome. We're not facing these trials or tribulations unless God knows we're going to be okay with it. We're going to grow from it. We're going to gain character from it and experience that is going to help us as people. So when you're facing a tough time, understand this is God believing in you, and that's the case in raising children. That's the case in being a good steward of God's things God has given to you. It's the way of being a righteous person. It's the way of being a giving person, being a good husband, a good wife, a good child, a good family member, a good friend. All of this, I think, comes together in that sort of area of understanding. And so, but there are some things when you think about families that are in need, that have some needs in their life. And so what I want to do is, I really want to spend another whole show talking about this, but I want this quickly. We'll hit this later. But when you have a family who walks in the church building, make sure and greet them well. Have a mixture of age group type people in the foyer to welcome visitors. John Podine and I put together something called the Acts approach, which is that Acts 1:8, going into all the world. It's based on evangelism. It's also based on being kind to your elders. Yes, be kind to your elders always, but be kind to your visitors. Welcome them. Be a friendly church. Be a loving congregation. And so keep that in mind. So when a family comes in, how do you deal with families who have children with special needs? Well, you start by showing compassion for them. Sometimes parents with children on the spectrum for autism or any really special need, their eyes are always open. They're going to walk in the door and they're going to look for some things and make sure that a congregation or a church building has the facilities to necessitate bringing a special needs child into the building. And let's not fool ourselves. Special needs is not just for children. It's all ages. Okay. But we need to show compassion. But a congregation also needs to be able to make some adjustments. We need to make some adjustments. So there are things in the building, classrooms, even the bathrooms, and other situations that have to be adjusted for a special needs person. So that's definitely something we talked about and discussed. Another one was that we need to provide provide volunteers and resources. So please keep that in mind as we go forward, because sometimes a family, a husband and wife, a father and mother who are bringing their children in, they need to be taught as well. Please don't allow a family to walk in the building and say, there's a classroom, go to it, treat it like a dungeon. Don't do that. First of all, it needs to be a haven. And we have people here who've come to Piedmont Road, who've come to, we call it the kind room, where we have, it's a room with no anxiety. I'm telling you, it's there to help out with all kinds of things and resources that they can go to and be in a place for their children. But provide a teacher, provide a person to be with those kids and let those parents know that they're in good hands. So those parents can go to class or go to worship or whatever. So create opportunities for that, but you've got to have volunteers. You got to have that meeting. You've got to talk to people about, are you willing to give up some time so that other people are able to go to class and do that. Now do a rotation of that. Don't let one person do it all, then they don't get any class, so be careful about that. Offer options for these families. Offer some options for these families. They understand this when they walk in the door. They really don't want to be there. They do, but they're anxious a little bit about what this is going to be like. Some parents, in having, I will speak to you as a parent of a child on the spectrum for autism. I will tell you, and research has shown this too. This is just Paul's thoughts. This is research that shared this, that when you receive information letting you know that your child has autism, it is equal to that thought of death, because your goals change. You go from wanting your child to play football to wanting your child to at least say, a word, a sentence, a paragraph of words to communicate with you. So please keep that in mind. And that being said, another thing that is having open conversation, open communication with these families. When people come in and visit with you and spend some time with you, call them back, get their information. What can we do to help you? And if we weren't able to help you, what can we do better next time? That is very important for all that. And the biggest thing is really no different than any other visitor. You got to love on these families. You got to encourage them. You got to be there for them. The psalmist wrote the words, beautiful words, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And God created things to be so incredible and so awesome. Please don't look at a special needs situation as a problem. This is their path, and they're on their journey, as we all are. And we just need to find ways to facilitate an opportunity to make their life and all of our lives a little easier in this world, because we know that in the next one, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be great. I appreciate Lysander for being with me today. For him, for all the good folks at Minister League, thank you for being here and watching this. For the great folks at Piedmont Road, our church family, thank you for supporting us, supporting this show and many others like it, and the good work that we do. I want to thank you for being with us, and always continue to join us on our pursuit of the truth, justice, and the way to Him. Have a great day. Have a blessed week. We'll talk soon.